Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at one of the most overlooked features within SharePoint, and that is of course the dashboard experience that's available for every SharePoint site you have. Now the reason I think that it's overlooked so much is because it's kind of out of the way. You have to know where it is in order to configure it, and then you can pop it onto your pages. So in this video what we're going to do is we're going to look at where you access the dashboard, the different cards available within the dashboard, the out-of-the-box cards, and also we'll really focus on how you can create your own custom cards using the card designer. Now these cards are going to allow you to do some pretty cool things on your site, things that people are not used to seeing within SharePoint sites. So with that, of course, you get the wow factor and people will think you're an absolute SharePoint genius, when really you just need to know what to do, and it's fairly straightforward. Now there is a little bit of JSON in these cards. However, I've created 3 templates which I feel are fairly extensible. So the code for these templates will be on my site. You don't have to learn it, but it's worth going through the video to see how they work. When you put these cards on your sites, all you have to do is edit the text that's going to be displayed, or links, or any of that thing, but it's all very easy to do. And if you're new here, well, hi, I'm Dan Carroll, Microsoft MVP and General SharePoint Messer. I suppose that's appropriate. But I'm here to show you all the different things you can do within SharePoint to really uplift your sites and create brilliant user experiences. Now, with all my videos, I like to demonstrate something in the context of an actual site. So we're going to build this site together from start to finish, which is an Oasis-themed site. I'll get into why now in a few minutes. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and sit down and let's get into it. This video is sponsored by me and Academy 365, which is a site where I have a number of courses that will take you from zero to absolute SharePoint hero. These courses are structured to guide you step by step on how to deliver the most common internet requirements I see day in and day out. Whether you're building a new internet site or indeed need to uplift and revitalize an existing site, these courses are for you. And the best thing is you don't have to be a techie to take them, right? These courses have been carefully designed so they're accessible to anybody with any level of experience within SharePoint. We have the SharePoint Site Builder Masterclass version 2, which is an updated version of my original flagship course. This course guides you on how to create a typical internet department site step by step, jam-packed with the most common requirements I see from real-world experience. We also have the SharePoint Training and Education Platform Site course, which will show you how to create amazing educational experiences within SharePoint. Both courses are laser focused on end user experience, so you'll be able to wow your users, your colleagues, and even your bosses. If you're interested, there's a link below along with a tasty discount. Now back to the video. So let's take a look at what we're going to build. So here we have this Oasis themed site. Now why Oasis? Well, it's basically a tribute to the lads because I went and saw their gig last month and it was fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. So I said, you know, I can only build so many HR demo sites that I think I'm going to build something different. So it's an Oasis themed site dedicated to the 2 happiest looking men in show business. So I'll run you quickly through the site and then we'll get into the dashboard. So what we have here is we have our hero section up the top where we have the 2 happy looking fellas, and then we have a nice little intro. We have a couple of anchor links here. Now what I mean by anchor link is it just links the content further down the page. Just if you've got a long page, it can be a nice thing to do to show people what's on it. We'll go through that. But then we come down the page and this is an example of a dashboard. Now a dashboard in SharePoint, it's just a set of cards. There's 3 here on the page and you can configure them to do lots of different things, or you can choose from a selection of out of the box. And when you have that configured, you can use the dashboard web part to place them on the page. So if we come in here, what they're really cool for, I think anyway, is we can create these custom cards and they have an option for this quick view. And what a quick view is basically a pop-up that allows you to display more information about whatever the target of that card is. So for example, here I have a card that's all about the set list of the concert. So we can have a link here which will lead to the Spotify playlist, or else I can say view and people can have a quick view of all the songs that are in the set list. So basically we have a nice little image here, we have a subtitle, and then we have a table here which can have multiple items within it. Now this is all templated, so I'll have it ready for you to copy and paste from my site. So you'll just edit the data, the structure will all be in place, but it can be nice and handy to put a list of whatever you want in here basically. And then at the bottom we can have some quick links or some calls to action to link to whatever we want. So that's one example of a card. Second example over here I have is for something for our tickets. So if I click the button here, again we get a pop-up with our image and we can have a more detailed explanation of what the card represents, as well with 1 or more calls to actions to, you know, take action on the card. And then the last one I have over here is all about statistics and, you know, key metrics about the tour. So someone can come over and say quick peek, and then we can see a snapshot of the world tour, 41 shows announced, 5+ continents, 85,000 largest venue cap and 14 million ticket requests. requests. So the lads made an absolute fortune on this one. But again, it's just a quick way to show some, nice statistics about whatever the page or the card represents. So they're the 3 card templates that we'll walk through and build together. Again, you can just copy and paste the JSON from my site and you'll be good to go. So then coming down the page, I have a section here, which is just basically a manually created news article where we have an animated GIF or GIF, however you pronounce it, on the page, along with some text here and a nice background in here. Come down again and we can meet who the band members are. I'm now an expert on Oasis. I know them all. So this is just a way to kind of show people who's in the band. Everybody knows these 2 guys, but maybe not everybody knows the rest of the lads, so a way to do that. But this could be a meet the team or who's in your department kind of a section on a page. And then finally coming down the page, we have the anatomy of a bucket hat. So we all know a bucket hat at an Oasis gig is key attire. So this is just going to keep you in the right track on how to wear it. And what the rules around a bucket hat might be. So just a bit of fun on the page. So that's everything that's on the page. But like I said, the main focus here is going to be on the dashboards and how we create these cards. So let's start with that. So we're going to start off with a blank site so you can get the full experience. So here on a blank site, typically what you get out of the box, if we want to look at the dashboard, so with the page in edit mode, if we wanted to add in a web part, we can always search for dashboard, okay? And we see we have a dashboard web part. And if we click it, it's asking us to set up the dashboard. So there's nothing automatically displaying here. So what we can do is we can get out of the edit mode. And what we want to do is we want to come up to the cog here and we want to go to manage dashboard. If we click there, we have an option down here to create. So click that. And that's going to bring us to this page where we build out our dashboard. So the way this works is we build the dashboard separately. And then once we've created it, we can then embed it on the page using the dashboard web part. So when we're in here, we have the option to add a card. So if we click that, we get a long list of cards in here that come out of the box ready to go. And they all have different functionality. So if we wanted to explore a couple of them, we could look at events. So if I click events, what it's basically going to do, it's like the events web part. It's going to pull in any events that we have on the site. So we can click the pencil and then very much like an events web part, we can configure it to show a certain amount of events and it'll be in this style. Some other cards that we have in here, well, we could have the OneDrive card. And basically that's going to show recent files within our OneDrive. Now these cards have different functionality. So if I save this as a draft, just to give you an idea, when we come in here and we say view more files, it's going to give me a link to various files that are in my OneDrive and an option to open it up. So it can be a nice card to have on a page if you want to promote OneDrive amongst your users. Come back into edit mode and I say add another card. There's things in here like news, we can have links, we can link to a folder, specific folder, which is handy as well. So we come in here and we can choose which site we want to pull a folder from and what specific folder on that site. So again, a handy way to show things like policies if you've got a policy library or something like that. Come to add a card again. Some other cards we can look at in here would be a people card. Now this is actually a very useful card because there's often a requirement to have people search directly embedded on a page. So if I choose the people card and we say save as draft, basically this allows you to have a search box embedded within your page, which is going to query Active Directory or Entra, whichever you want to call it. And it's handy rather than people having to come up to the site searching that way and then going through the various levels to find the people. So I could come in here and I could type in Dan and it's going to find me in here and I can click it and that's going to show my profile. So that's a very handy card, something that I see used quite often. So like I said, in here there's lots of different cards and it's worth coming in here, clicking on each of them, exploring them and seeing what they can do. They all have various different options. And then once you have your cards in here, you can always, move them around the page and, put them in the order that you want. It's very flexible that way. We can also come into a card and we can say the size of the card. So if you want to fit them, nicely into a grid pattern, you can play around with, the large or the medium sizes and get what you want. But that's the out of the box cards. We also have the card designer, and that's how I built the Oasis-themed card. So let's have a look at that. So what I'll do is I'll delete all these cards out of here because I don't actually want them for my example. And then when we click add a card, we have an option for the card designer. Now this is the magic, right? So we click on this and now we get the ability to design the card that we want in here. So we can have just the description, we can have an image in there, or we can have just a heading, which is just going to be text. And then we can set this card size to medium and large. So if I set it to large, I get a bit more space to play around. We can have our image and things like that if you want to add a bit of color to your page, which is what we went for. So let's take a look at the cards, or the example cards that I built. So back over to our Oasis site, I go to the cog and I'm going to say manage dashboard, and I'm going to say edit, because I've already created it on this site. And here are the 3 cards that I created. So I can click edit. And if we look at our setlist card in here, and I come into its edit option, we can see here that I set it up as an image card. I chose large. And then we can come in here for the icon. That's what we see up here. You can have a custom image, or you can indeed choose from the library, whatever works for you. Library is going to be a set of icons that come stock. So we can choose some leaves, for example, and I can say select, and we'll see the leaves come in there. Or indeed, you could choose custom image and upload your own icon if you want to. Then if we come down, we have setlist. That's going to be the title of the card. It's going to appear up here. And then we can have a heading. Now, a heading is actually just the text that appears in here. Okay, so you can put in whatever you want, but just be aware that you've got a certain amount of space that you can display in here before it'll truncate. So try and keep that all visible within the card. And because I chose an image layout, I have the option to add in an image. So I created this image and popped it in here just to keep it in line with the colors on my site, but you can choose any image you want. And then we come down to the actions. Okay, so this is what the card is actually going to do. So if we see here, we've got a card action. So that's if anyone clicks anywhere on the card, what do you want to happen? So we have options in here. We could just go to a link and it can be any URL. We can go to a Teams app and that will load up the various apps you have available with inside Teams. If you want to go to approvals or something like that, although there is an approvals card, but if you have an app you want to link to, you can absolutely pop it in there. And then we have show quick view. Now that's what I chose. That's going to give us our pop-up if anyone clicks anywhere on the card. So I went with that. We have a primary button and a secondary button. So over here, I've got a primary and a secondary button displayed. Now you can toggle those on and off if you only need one button. So in my primary button, I've labeled it view. That's the label in here. And then the action I have is show the quick view. So again, someone can click anywhere on the card or they can click the view button and that's going to show the pop-up. Now, when you have 2 actions saying, show me the quick view, it's just giving you a little prompt to say, hey, you only have one quick view. So even though you're giving people 2 places to click it, it's still the same quick view. That's absolutely fine. And then our secondary button, I have it toggled on. You could toggle it off and you'll only have the one button, but toggling it on, I have it going to a Spotify link to the playlist I'm promoting through this list. And then we have the option to audience target. So if you have any kind of Microsoft 365 groups or security groups, you can pop it in there. So if you happen to have a group called Oasis Lovers, they'd be the people who sees this card and nobody else would. So audience targeting, like we have across multiple web parts, is available for these custom cards. So this first page of the card designer really dictates what, the first impression of this card will be and what people will see. If we say next, that's going to allow us to configure the quick view. Now you'll only see a next button if you've activated one of the quick view options here. So once you've got quick view here or here, you're going to see next. So when you see next, you can click it. And then this is where we come in and we configure what that quick view will actually be. Now, the way this works is you've got 2 areas in here. Now, like I said, it's JSON, right? We've got template JSON and we've got data JSON. Now, what the template does is it tells SharePoint what is the structure of this quick view, okay? So, it's the format of this quick view. And then data JSON, that's going to be the actual content that sits within that template. So once you set up your template, you shouldn't have to touch that again, okay? That should be locked in. The data is what you might update over time or maintain as actual content. So this is the JSON I put in here, and I may or may not have used ChatGPT to help me with this. Not a bad shout if you want to configure it or tweak it to something different than I have here. But I'll have the code, both the template and the data, on my site, so you can go and take that and just copy and paste it. But let's have a look at what it's actually doing, just so you have a bit of an understanding about it. So I'll open up this code in Visual Studio. It's easier to see and easier to explain, but you don't have to have Visual Studio. You can just paste your code right in here and work from it within here. So over in Visual Studio, this is that template JSON. I literally just copy and paste it in here so you can see. So the top bit up here, that's going to be kind of standard, right? You don't have to worry about that. But when we come in here, we have this body section in here, okay? And again, this is the template. This is setting the structure for our card. Now, I won't dwell on this too long, just give you a quick run through of it. So we have this body section over here, and we have a container, and it contains our hero image, and that uses a placeholder of hero image. Now, this will make sense when we get to the data bit in a minute. And we have some alignment stuff, and that's all basically all going to control how this image appears within here. Then we have a container down here where we have two pieces of content. We have a hero title and we have a subtitle. Now back in here, I didn't actually put anything in for the title because it didn't read well over the image, but if you had a darker image, you could absolutely do that. I just went to use the subtitle in here, so that's all I populated there, but there is an option to put a title there if you want it. And then we come down again, and then we have another text block in here, and this is going to be for the section title. So what that represents is this fella in here, the 2025 live set list. So that's our section title, which is just a text block here. And then we come down again, and now this is where we configure the layout of our table. So we have another container and we have a column set. And basically what we said is we have 3 columns in here. We have this one, and this one. This is a small one, this is a big one, and this is a medium one. So that's our first column in here is a width of 10. That's the small one. Then we have the next column in here, which is 70. That's going to be the meat of our list item. And then we have the last column, which is 20, and that's going to be the length of the song in our case. So this is just setting up what the columns are and what the sizing is. And we have our placeholders in here for the column headings, okay? That's all in there, good to go. And then we come down here, and now this is where we're defining the rows, okay? So we have our rows, and we have basically an action for that row. So we can pop in a URL, and that row, when clicked, will link to somewhere nice and handy. And then basically we're just putting in placeholders for the data that will pop into our row. So this is our 10 width, our small width on the left, and we have an icon in there, although I'm just using emojis, but the icon is what the placeholder for the text is. And then we have the 70, and that's got 2 pieces of text. It's got a label and it's got a description. And then in our last column, we have another piece of text, which is for info, and that's where we're putting in the length of our track. And then the last piece we have on here is going to be the buttons that we have at the bottom of our card. So we have in here, you know, the option to have 2 buttons, a primary and a secondary, but you could add in additional if you wanted to. So again, when we come down the card, that's these pieces in here. So that's basically the structure of our card. And like I said, if you're happy with that structure, once you've set it, you're good to go. Now, the nice thing about this structure is that we're not locked into a certain amount of rows. It's built to accommodate any amount of rows we put into our data. So looking at the data then, we can see in here, it's a little hard to read. So I've copied this basically just as it is and popped it into Visual Studio so we can have a look at it. So if I come over to data, we can see here that this is where we specify the values for all of those placeholders in our template. So our hero image URL, well, that's in here. It's an image I've saved on the site, and then I'm just referencing it from in here. Then we've options for the height of the image or the minimum height, and then the title, subtitle, section title. So this is all of the information that we see on the card. So 2025 live set list, that's this in here. We have our column headings, tune, length, our buttons, listen on Spotify, a placeholder for the URL. That's all in here ready to go. And then we have our rows in here. So you can see the format of each row is the same. If I wanted to remove rows, just delete them out. If I wanted to add in more rows, I basically just copy and paste a row to add in whatever I want. So we can see in here, this relates to all of our text placeholders. So back in our template, we can see that we have label and description here. When we come in here, we see that we have label, description, info, URL. So that's all in here ready to go. You just basically update it with whatever you want, and that's going to give you this result in here, which I think looks pretty nice and is a great feature to have on your sites. So simple as that. So let's actually build that on our new site, okay? So we're going to come over here to our site. We have our card designer here, and I'm going to pop in the card title, which is going to be Setlist. And then I'm going to pop in my heading, which is this piece in here, which is good to go. And then we can pop in our image. Now, one thing on images, if you're going to be a stickler like I typically am, is that we notice in here that I've got 2 images, right? They both look the same, but they're slightly different, and that's because their orientation is different. So when we look on the card here, as it's shown before anyone interacts with it, we've got more of a portrait style image. But when we come into the actual pop out or the quick view, we've got this more landscape image. So you kind of want to create 2 different images, if you're a stickler like me, so that it renders exactly perfect. So surprise, surprise, I use Figma for this. So I will come over to Figma. Now, if you're new here, Figma is just a design package. There's a free version so you can get in and you can use it straight away. Very easy to use, but invaluable in creating really nice looking internet sites. So when I'm in Figma, we can see that I have Setlist 1 and Cover Setlist 1. And these are the 2 images that I use basically. One is for the preview of the card and the other one is for the quick view image on the card. You're probably wondering, well, what are the sizes that I need to use for this? And to be honest, I didn't didn't know either. So the best thing that I can do is what I will do is I'll usually take a screenshot, the card in place so I get the size of it. So I'll take that, then I'll pop over here, and then I know that this is roughly the size of the image that I want. And when I have it in here, what I'll do is I'll typically just take a rectangle and I'll draw it over, bring it to the side, and that effectively becomes my canvas. So I can right click on that and say frame selection. So now I have that canvas in here, and everything else is just, you know, design this image. So really quick, how did I do it? So I'll click this. So I've selected the frame. I can see over on my layers on the left hand side, we have a rectangle here. So I'll select my rectangle. I look at its fill because it's currently set to that gray, and I know that I want a little bit of a gradient, something nice looking. So I'll select gradient, and now I have the two controls for the colors in my gradient. So I've selected this one. You can see it here. This is the color we're starting with, and we're going to go to the second color, which is this color. So for the top color, I'm going to come in here, select the color, and I'll set it to red. And then over on the next color, I'll select that. I'll select that also to red, but what I sometimes like to do is if you move this slider ever so slightly, you'll get a nice gradient. So this is like, I know this is shown as a linear color band here, but think of it as circular. So where this ends, it starts back over here. So we can bring this all the way over here and just move it slightly, and we'll get this nice kind of gray. It's very subtle, but I think it's nice. So we pop that in like that. So we have this in here. And now for icons, well, it's, you know, if you're using Figma, it's a good idea to find an icon set that you can always rely on when you need a quick cheeky icon to pop on your page. So I tend to use this one in here for a lot of times. I like the icons, icon sacks. I'll put a link to it down below, and then you can have the file available within Figma. So this is a music one. So I know I have a category over here called video, audio, and image. And I can come in here and I can pick an icon that is suitable for a playlist. And I'll choose this one here because that's what we use in the actual demo dashboard. So I'll come in here, I'll select the frame here, and I'll paste it in here. Comes in quite small. So over on my layers panel with these icons, you typically have to drop it down, and you'll see the actual icon. Drag that up here and then delete the bit you don't need. So we just have this, and now we can resize this to whatever size we want. So I'll stick it there in the middle of the card, bring it up nice and big. And then over here on the right hand side, if we want these lines to be thicker, we can go to stroke, and it's at 1.5 at the moment, but I can bring it up. Hitting up on the keyboard here while I'm in that text box, and it'll give me something like this. And then we can change the color of the stroke to white, and we'll get something like that. And then we can always select it, and we can click on effect, and that'll add a very subtle drop shadow to it in there, something like that. So then you can click the image you just created, and you can go to export, save it as a PNG, and then it's ready to go. Now I know that was really quick, right? But the takeaway here is create custom images in Figma if you want. Figma is a great tool. It's well worth learning. It'll pay you back your time investment many times over, trust me. So that's how I created my image. Very same when I want to get the size for the quick view image, I'll take a screenshot of it, bring it in here, repeat the process, and you're good to go. Then you'll have two images bespoke for the size that you want them. So back over on our demo site, I'll come in here and I'm back on the card designer here, and I want this image. So I'm going to say change, and I'm just going to upload the images that I've created. So I'll come over to upload, and within here, I have the image I created. So we have this here. So I'm just going to choose that image and say upload, add image. And then we have our nice looking image in here. Now we'll update the theme of the site. So the buttons will change to the red color, so it'll all tie in, but we'll get there. So we have this in here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to click next down here to configure the quick view. Now by default, you're going to come in and you're going to get something like this. We know we want to change it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my demo site. I'm going to copy the JSON, which will be on my site. You can do the exact same thing. So I'll come in here. My template looks like this. Copy it back over here. Delete all of this messing. Paste this in here. And now we have this in here. And I'll come back over here. And in terms of the data, again, copy it all. Remove this. Paste this in, and now we have everything pretty much ready to go. Now the image that I have up here, okay, it's referencing it from the other site where I have this. Now I have access to that site, that's why it's coming in here. But you're going to need to pop in the URL of an image for this image that obviously lives on your site that people will have access to. So very quickly, a way to do that. So we'll save this as draft, and we can come into site contents. And what we can do is, handy place to put it is site assets, and we'll just upload the image in here. So what I'll do is I'll open up Finder, or Explorer in your case if you're on Windows. I'll get my cover setlist 1 image and I'll bring it over here. And now that that's uploaded, I can select the image, come over to details and scroll right down to the end, and I'm going to see an icon here for path. I can copy that, and that's the URL that I'm going to use in my dashboard. So I've copied that URL. come back over here. I'm going to come back to home, and we can see that my dashboard is already appearing there, which is great because we left the web part there. But I'm going to come back up to the cog. I'm going to say manage dashboard. I'll click edit, and we'll click edit again. And now we can come into the card and we can click next. And down here in our data, I will remove this link in here. And you're really just going up to the end of the file name. So see, I have setlist1.png. I'm basically getting rid of everything before the question mark, pasting in my new image, which comes in like that, which is perfect and ready to go. And it's really at this stage, you know, you have your card in there. If you want to edit any of the rows in here, you can of course come in here and do it. You have the title and URL for your links down here ready to rock and roll. Now there's no specific save button in here. When you've got that in there, you just hit X. And now your card is in here ready to go. So we can say publish, and we can see here if we click this button, we'll get the quick view, and this button is going to link to whatever we said. So actually I should have changed that. So we'll come back in, we'll edit the card really quick, and we can see in here our first button, well, we're going to say this is show the quick view, and we're going to say Setlist. And then our secondary button, we can say Spotify. And I'll leave it on show quick view, but really I would just change this to go to a link, and I'd pop in the link to the playlist on Spotify, and it'd be simple as that. So now we can say republish. And then when we come back to our home screen, because we had the dashboard card already on the page, we can see it's in here and it works exact same way. So we can say setlist, we click it, and we get our lovely setlist in here ready to go. Nice piece of functionality. So now moving on to our next card template, we have the tickets one. And really what this one is a way for you to have an image, heading, a bit of text, and then description and some call to action buttons. And this one is a bit simpler. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at it. So we'll put the page into edit mode. I'll select this card and I'll go to the settings of it. And we can see in here, we've configured it very much the same. We've chosen image, a large, we have our icon, we have a title, our heading, we have our image here. Now you just create the images the same way as you saw me create it for the last card. I won't put you through that again. But you know, if you're not like me and you don't want to spend the time creating those images, you always have the stock images in here. And you can choose an image that you think is suitable for the card. You don't have to go bananas on it like I tend to do. But that's in there. But the real part of this is obviously the quick view, like we said before. And the template in here is a bit simpler because really we just have the image and we have the bit down here. But again, it's still powered with our template, which is our structure, and then the data, which is actual content that we see in here. So if we look at the template, I'll bring you over to Visual Studio and we can have a little look at what's going on in here. So again, we've got this little bit at the top, which is the same for every card. It's just setting out the schema. Then when we come in here, we have body, and this is controlling the top section, which is our image. So we have our image placeholder, we have a hero title if you want to use it, and we have the subtitle. Okay, so that's all in there, happy and ready to go, and that's going to give us this piece up here. And then down here we just have a description and two buttons. So we can see down here, if we come down to the next section, we have our text block, which is our description, and then we have the action set, which is our URLs or our links, where we can put in a title and of course the target link. In terms of data, much simpler. We have just our placeholders where we can pop in the content. So we have our image, we have our title. I left it blank again because it didn't read right over my image, but we have the subtitle, which I did use, and then we have the description, then the button title, then the button link, secondary button title, secondary button link. Very straightforward. So that's all you have to do, is you pop that in there, edit the content as you need, and you'll end up with a card like that. Now I won't put you through me building it. I just want to walk you through it so you see what it is, but it's very straightforward. And then for the last card, well, it's very much the same again. Our card layout is the same. We chose the same options in here. In both the tickets and the tour stats, we just used one button, and that's for the quick view. So that's fine. You can use one or two. It's totally up to yourself. And then if we have a look at its JSON, very similar again. We just have the same type of thing. We're setting out the structure here in our template, and then we have the data source in here, which is our JSON. Now, in terms of our icons in here, you can see here in the data that I just used emojis in here because I thought they rendered quite nicely, but you could amend the code in the template so that you can use an actual icon image that you can store on your site. And I'll include that as a variation to this template on my website, which will show you basically what the new code is for that. And then for actually uploading the images and getting the URL, we'll follow exactly what we did when we looked at the first card and how to get its quick view image. You're basically going to upload your images to the site, maybe in site assets. You'll click the image, go down to the path in the detail section, that's the URL you're going to use, but very straightforward. So I'm going to add these cards to the site that we're building out together, and then we'll finish out the page, and then you'll see exactly how I pulled the whole thing together. So bear with me 2 seconds. And just like that, I have the cards on the site. Just a copy and paste job, literally what it was. But now we can see a lovely set list in here. We can have some more information about booking tickets in here, and then we can have a quick peek at the tour stats ready to rock and roll. No pun intended. So if I come back to the home page in here, we can see here that the dashboard is automatically updated because I left that web part on the page. So what we'll do now for the rest of the video is we'll take this page and we'll transform it into this page here. I'll show you all the steps involved. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll get the theme on the site so our buttons actually look like they tie in. So back over to our demo site, what I'll do is I'll come up to the cog and we're going to create a new theme for our site. So I'll say site branding, new. When I come in here, I have the option to add a new theme to the site. So I'll select that and we'll keep this theme very simple. We'll just add really one color. So I'll say add a color and I can say new color. And I'm just going to pop in a red color that I have in here that matches the site. So I'll say add. We have that in here and that's how we'll see what the theme will look like. And I'll say next. I'll give it a name of Oasis, red, and I'll say save. So now that theme is created, so we can now apply it to the site. So I'll come back to the home page. I'll come up to the cog and I'll say change the look. So in here we can go to theme and I'm going to choose my Oasis red, which will be available because we just created it. I'll select that and we can see everything flipped over to red, which is perfect. I'll click save. And now we can see that our buttons now match the theme of our site and ties in with our images nicely. So our dashboard is there. Now let's edit the page itself and transform it into an Oasis fan page. So we'll come up here, this full width section, don't need it, don't want it. So I'll select here. I'll drop down where it says hero and I'll say full width section because I want to now interact with the full width section and I'm just going to delete it. I want to delete this whole section down here because I don't want any of that, but I don't want to delete this. So I'm going to add in a new section and I'm just going to click a one column section. I'll bring this fella up to here, which is good. And we can see on our site here that it's on a black background. Now a handy way just to get a quick cheeky black background, select the section, come up to the properties, go to design, and maybe choose this fella down here. I don't want the texture, but I can see here I've got a black overlay color, so I can take that all the way to the right to 100%, and we effectively have a black background, which is great. Now back on the demo site, we want this section up here. So what I'll do is I'll come to my new page and I'll say add a section and we're going to choose a flexible section, which gives us lots of room to maneuver. And basically I want this text up here. So I'll select it and I'll copy it. Back over here, I'm going to go to the toolbox here and I'm going to add in a text web part. And then I can copy and paste the text in here. And we'll just bring it down a little bit from the top. 2 boxes is generally what I go for. The size of the font I used here is 100. It's quite big, but I want this to be fairly striking. And I've made it a heading too. And for little accents like this, just to bring the branding colors in, I sometimes add a full stop in here and then just change its color to my team primary color like so. And then back on our demo site, well, we just have a description of the tour. So a description of the page. So I'm going to copy that back over here, add in another text box, and I will paste that in here and bring this over to the right just so it spaces out a bit, and then we are in good shape. And now we want this background image in here of the 2 happy campers. So what we'll do is we'll come over here. Now I've created this image in Figma, would you believe? So if we come over to Figma, we can see that it is this image in here. Now really all I've done is I've created a frame. So what the hell, let's do it together. So basically the frame I have over here is 5087 pixels by 2018. That's very random. I kind of just drew the proportions that I thought I wanted. So nothing too scientific about that. So I'll go with a similar shooting from the hip style here. So now we have this canvas in here. Now I want to get the picture of the brothers here. So what you can do is you can go to Google, you can find the image and you can just copy the image and paste it in here. So here on Google, this is actually the image I chose, okay? So I'll select the image and I'll right click it and I'm gonna say copy image. I'll come back into Figma and this is just gonna be another example of why I love Figma. So I'll paste the image in here. Now, obviously this image has a background where I don't want a background. I want these guys to just tie in seamlessly to my site. So when you pop an image right into Figma, you can select the image. You can come down here to this actions button down here, select it, and you'll see an option to remove background. So if you've got the image selected and you click remove background, it's going to work its AI magic and it'll magically make it appear as if there's no background, just like so. Absolutely fantastic. So now we have that, we can drag these guys over to our frame and then we can kind of match up what we have in the image. Something there or thereabouts is fine. These 2 little things in here, that's just me being arty-farty. Basically, all I did was I got, a rectangle, something like that. And then I gave it the red color that I wanted. I'll just use the color dropper to copy this. Choose any color you want. Bring it over here. And then down the corners here, I can just bring it to the side or rotate it even. So when you do that right, and you notice that I'm in the frame here because the frame is selected and we can see I can move this and the bit that goes outside the frame disappears. If I bring it down here to a certain point, it's now outside the frame. We always want it inside the frame. So just bring it close enough to the frame, and then you can always use your arrow keys to position it further and it won't pop out. And then we want another one. So we've got go faster stripes, I suppose. So I'll copy it and paste it. And again, I'll just pull it down ever so slightly and we get something like that. And you know, thereabouts, that'll kind of do. So then you just select the image, you save it down, and then it's ready to upload to your site. So back on our site here, I want to have that image as a background. Now I could add it as an image to the page, but there'll always be white space between, you know, this section and the next section. But I want these guys to appear like they're popping out of our dashboard section below. So what I'll do in that case is select this section up here, come over to the properties, go to design, and I'm going to add in a background. So selecting that gives me the option to choose an image, and I'm going to go to upload. I'm basically going to select the image that I just created. So I have my cover image here. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to say upload. And I'm going to add my image, and our image pops in like this. Now SharePoint's added a white overlay to it, so I can bring that all the way down if I want, and the guys will be fairly visible in there. If you find your text is bleeding a bit over, you can move it to the left, and you can basically just play around with the image settings. You'll always find them by clicking the section, basically coming over to the properties and go to design, and you can play around. You can change the background image if you want. You can edit the focal point, the overlay, things like that. Just have a play around with it and you'll get to a certain point. So moving down the page, we have this section down here. Now this is pretty simple. It's just another section with a background. We have an image in here, which is actually a GIF, and then we have some text. So what I'll do is I'll come down here, and you know, you can use flexible sections, but sometimes I find they're a little bit buggy. So in this example, a 2-column will work perfectly, and you know, it's more reliable. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add in an image. And again, I'm going to upload an image, and I have a GIF that I have in here. Now, you know, you can use these animated GIFs or GIFs in an image web part, no problem. And for this image here, I actually took a stock video of Oasis. May or may not have been from their website, and they may or may not have given me permission, but say nothing. But there's lots of GIF converters online where you can go and upload an image and it'll transform it into a GIF for you. So I may or may not have done something like that, but I'm going to choose this file and we get it in here like this, and I'm going to say add image, and it'll pop into your site in all its glory and play. And then over on this side, I'm just going to add in a text web part. Again, I'll just copy this text in here because I'm horrid lazy. We'll pop in here and it comes in like this. Perfect. And then just for the background, what we'll do is select the background, come to the properties, and again, we're going to go to design, add in a background, and I'm going to upload that image of the stage that I had before, which is this fella here. I'm going to say upload, add image, and there we go. And you can play around with the opacity if you want to make it a bit darker to make the contrast better with your white text. So we have that in there. Pretty simple. And then the next section, who we are. Well, this is basically just, well, this is a text web part, image, and then text, and we just repeat it down the page. Now for these images in here, again, getting a little bit arty with it, but if you wanted to do something similar, I got kind of lucky, to be honest, because they all have short first names, but ultimately it's Figma again, right? I sourced the image of each of the guys, used the remove background, and just placed a little bit of text on top, which gave me the image in here. So really quickly to create that, we'll come over here. In this case, I did use a flexible section, so I'll pop that in here like this. And now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add in the text web part. I'm going to say, who are Oasis? I pop it in there like that. Now it's important that we do make this text a H2, because that's going to give us the option to have this little link icon in here, which is our anchor link, which we can use then to link from here. Okay, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. So who are Oasis? And then we can just add in the band members. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to add in the image, upload the image. I'm going to choose Liam first. Add image, comes in like that. He's a bit big for my liking, so I'm going to bring him down and just bring it in line with the grid. And I'll add in a text web part, but roughly where I want it. Over to my demo site, and I'm just going to take in Liam's backstory. Comes in something like that. Wondering, this is a H2. I've put it at 28, and then we're back into just normal text, 18, bold, font color, stuff like that makes it pop out. And what you want to do is, we're doing something like this. Because we're going to be conscious about this on a mobile device, what we'll do is we'll select Liam and we'll hold Command. Too sure what the equivalent on Windows is, but one of those funny buttons. So you basically want to select both of these and we want to group it. That means that when we're on a mobile device and this all wraps around and flips around, Liam will stay with his picture, or the picture will stay with the text about Liam. So we pop that in there like that. And now we have the layout of a character or a band member. So what we'll do is we'll duplicate it. Then we can just drag it over to the right-hand side. We can always look for our guides to make sure we're lined up. Put that in here, then this becomes null. For the image, we can just select the image, come to browse images, and that will allow us to replace that image. So we'll say upload, I go for null, and he comes in there like that. And then you can just edit the text. Now, one thing on the images again is you want to select the image, come to its properties, and over here we'll mark it as decorative. What that will do basically is it means someone can click the image and nothing will happen. If we don't click mark as decorative, if someone clicks the image, it's going to open up in a much bigger version. Now, you may or may not want the behavior, but that's how you control it. So basically you do that and you just duplicate these guys down the page till you get the full band, which is exactly what I did in here. So we'll just pretend I did that, okay? So then coming down to the next section, well, first let me just delete all this stuff out of here because we don't need it. The last section on our page is all about the anatomy of a bucket hat. This is obviously very niche, but just to quickly show you how I did it, I created this image in Figma. So if we come into Figma, you'll see here that this is the image that I created in here. It's just a transparent image, so it fits on a background nicely. I don't know where I sourced this image of a bucket hat. It was ChatGPT, I think. And then I just added in some text and some arrows around it to basically make it like a diagram. We have that in here. And then these are just the editorial web part, which worked out nicely to be spaced around the hat to call out more detail on each of these arrows. We'll come into our site here. I'm going to add in a flexible section, come up to my toolbox, add in an image. I'm going to upload my image of the bucket hat, which is our hat graphic here. I'll upload. Then I can always make it a bit bigger. So I'll do that, bring it over to this side over here. We have anatomy of a bucket hat. I'll copy this text, come over here, add in a web part. This is the great thing about the flexible sections. We can just, really work the page and put things exactly where we want them to be. And then it's a case of just adding in those editorial web parts. So I'll select here, I'll go for see all web parts. I'm going to choose editorial, which is a super web part and extremely flexible. So I'll bring that over here, make it this size, and we've lots of settings on this web part. I'm just going to say the background is our red color block. I'll set it to be aligned to the middle. Don't want the pre-header. I just want the headline and the description, and we don't need a call to action. Our first one is the tilt. So I'll come over here and I'll say the tilt. Then we can grab our description, come over here, and we'll just paste it in there. And if you paste a bit of text and it comes in like this, that just means that there's a background applied to it. So handiest way to get rid of that is just say clear all formatting, and you'll come back to something like this. Now over here, it's kind of made this a numbered list because I put in one dot. So what we want to do is get rid of that. So I'll just say clear formatting for the moment, which didn't seem to get rid of the bullet point. And actually, I don't see the option in here to get rid of bullet points. So we'll take the nuclear option. And what I'll do is I'll just add in another editorial web part, delete this fella. If anyone does know how to get rid of that, please let me know. So just repeat the steps, drag it in a bit, select its properties. We're going for red, we're going for the center, don't need pre-header, don't need call to action. Bring this up here. What I'll do is I'll type one dot dot, and then we'll say the tilt, and we're going to be trying to trick SharePoint here. Then I'll remove the dot, and it didn't cop on that we were doing a numbered list. So perfect, that'll work. Just copy that text again. We'll clear all the formatting, and we're back in business. So basically that's all I did for, highlighting the various elements. I will basically just copy this, bring it down, and then update the text like this. And we just position them around the hat, which is fairly straightforward. And then again, to get the background in here, I just select the section, go to design, and I'll go to add a background. Go to upload, I have the image prepared. So I'll select it here and we'll say upload, add image, and we effectively get our image in here like this. Now this image is actually the wrong version that I picked here because we can't really read the text on this background. So what I'll do is I'll select the image, I'll come over here to browse images, upload, and I think I created a hat graphic with white text. So that was the way to do that. So I'll select that, comes in here like this, and now our text should be readable, which it is, which is brilliant. And again, I'm going to select the image. I'm going to mark it as decorative. I don't necessarily want people clicking it and making it nice and big. So that's how we do that. So like I said, just duplicate this web part as many times as you need if you were going for something that looked like this. And it's a nice way to call out elements on the page. So the last thing we'll do here is we want to put in these buttons. So for example, if I click on Who Are Oasis, so I click it here, it automatically brings me down to this part of the page. Now the way that works is, like I said before, when you put in a heading, a piece of text text that's formatted as a heading, we'll get this little link in here. And when I click that, if I go to the URL bar, we're going to see that there's a bit appended to the end of it, which references this part of the page. So you can copy that link and you can place it on the page with a button. So if I'm over here on our demo site, I'll republish the page, come down to the actual link. So I'll select this link here, which obviously brings me down to here. I just copy the URL, and then when the page is in edit mode, I can come over here. I can add in a button web part, place it wherever I want, go to its settings. We'll pop in our link and we'll say who are Oasis. And I can just drag the button out so it's visible. And now that's a link that someone will come to this page, they'll see that, they click on it, it brings them straight to the point you want. Handy feature to know about. So you just repeat that for any sections you want it for. So that's effectively it. That's how I built the page. But like I said, the dashboard is the focus here. Not many people know it's there or exists or how to mess around with it, but I think it's really cool to add some, interesting UI to the page and a nice user experience. So go grab the code off my site, have a demo site, test it out, play around with it, look at all the out of the box cards as well. There might be something there that's very useful for you. And yeah, main thing, have fun and create great experiences for your users or anyone who's going to use the site, or maybe just for yourself if you want to have a play. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got something from it. If you did, like and subscribe, usual kind of stuff. And until next time, I will see you.